The term provincial downloading has been mentioned a couple of times, and I just want to address it directly. This question is for everyone, but we'll start with the Green Party candidate.
If alcohol builds a wall around you that doesn't let you see where you're going, that keeps you feeling isolated and alone, that makes you feel hopeless, know this: we're here to help if you want us to. It's never too early or too late to ask for help with a drinking problem. Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a way out. For more information, visit aa.org and download the Meeting Guide app.
On this episode of Cable 14's pilot project, Satori and Fig, we talk everything to do with all things health, wellness, and holistic living for you.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
We want to acknowledge that the City of Hamilton is situated upon traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Hello and welcome to our Cable 14 2025 Provincial Election Debates, presented in partnerships with our good friends at the Hamilton Spectator. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Fortune, and for the next hour and a half, I'll be your moderator as we are featuring candidates from the riding of Flamborough-Glanbrook. Joining us live in studio, we have representing the Liberal Party, Joshua Bell, representing the New Democratic Party, Lily Noble, representing the Green Party, Janet Eggers, and finally, representing the Progressive Conservative Party, Donna Skelly. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Also running in Flamborough-Glanbrook is Kristen Halfpenny, representing the New Blue Party, who took advantage of the opportunity to record a statement, and we'll be sharing that midway through our broadcast. Listen, thank you everyone for participating in our Flamborough-Glanbrook provincial election debate. The format for this broadcast is going to include 2 minutes for each candidate to make an opening statement. Then we'll be inviting 3 members of our local media to pose questions to our candidates. We'll also be putting forward questions that have been submitted by viewers, but a little bit more on that later. As mentioned, our candidates in studio will get a little break later on when we hear from the other candidate running in Flamborough-Glanbrook. Then, after another round of media questions, the last segment tonight is an open floor debate for each candidate to bring up one topic of their choice. Then there should be just enough time to have a 1-minute closing statement from each of our candidates right here in studio. And for our viewers at home, listen, if you're watching, first off, thank you very much. Make sure you tweet us on X while you're watching us live at Cable14, or email election@cable14.com to share any questions that you would like us to ask your candidates. Please remember to include your first name and what area of Flamborough-Glanbrook you live in. That completes all the housekeeping for now. We ready for this? Let's get started with your 2-minute opening statements. representing the Liberal Party, it's Joshua Bell.
Wonderful, and thank you so much for all of the other candidates for being with us here tonight, as well as to all of our media in room and Cable 14 for hosting this debate tonight. My name is Joshua Bell, and I'm your Liberal Party candidate for Flamborough-Glanbrook in the upcoming unnecessary election on February 27th, 2025. I'm running because I've seen the harm that this PC government has done to communities like ours here in Flamborough-Glanbrook, to families like mine with the healthcare system, and from all of you viewers out knocking doors and listening to your conversations and your own experiences with our healthcare system and education system. Housing costs are up, renting costs are up, our education system and healthcare systems are being underfunded, and we need to change that. We need a real leader like Bonnie Crombie and real community representation to stand up and take a stand for you at Queen's Park, to deliver healthcare, to deliver an education system that is going to work for you and your children, to stand up to President Trump and his unnecessary tariffs like on Hamilton Steel and other measures that he's taking to us. The Ontario Liberal Party and myself are proud to be here today, and we're proud to be taking a stand for you at Queen's Park if elected on February 27th.
Joshua, thank you very much. Joshua Bell from the Liberal Party. Up next, we have Lily Noble from the Ontario New Democratic Party. Lily, take it away.
Hi, thank you for having us here. I'm a child of Italian immigrants. I was born in Toronto. I attended McMaster University for my undergraduate degree, and afterwards I received a master's degree and worked in cancer research at the Hospital for Sick Children and the University of Toronto. My husband, who is a cancer doctor, was recruited to Sudbury in 2000, and my family grew up there at that time, through that time. While in Sudbury, I helped create and co-chaired a grassroots group of citizens and community groups who shared a vision of a city that was green and healthy and engaged. This 14-year experience has helped me to develop the skills to connect with community members, to find solutions for their problems. I hope to apply those skills to help the residents of Flamborough-Glanbrook, whether it be to address the problems of a smelly dump in Stony Creek, to ensure sufficient educational supports in Waterdown, to address the local shortage of family doctors, and to protect farmland. Since returning to Hamilton in 2021, I have met hundreds of people in my work with Stop Sprawl Hammond. It was hard to believe the Ford government's lack of respect for farmland and municipal governance. The Conservatives, Donna Skelly included, ignored the will of Hamiltonians, who overwhelmingly voted to keep farmland inside, to keep from expanding the urban boundary. Donna showed little interest in the will of the people. The RCMP investigation into the Ford government of the greenbelt grab is still ongoing, but it's clear it was more about rewarding connected developers than building homes for Ontarians. I am asking the residents of Flamborough-Glanbrook for their support to elect a government that will protect the interests of working people and preserve our farmland. Thank you.
Thank you to candidate Lily Noble of the NDP. And now we move on to the Green Party and Janet Eggers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Eggers here. I'm your Green Party of Ontario candidate. As you can see, Donna Skelly showed up, guys. She's here for her job interview. Donna Skelly, with her 1.9-star Google rating, showed up today for her job interview. Color me surprised. Today, Doug and Donna, our leaders, are not acting in our best interest. Back when I first campaigned in 2018, 7 years ago, I was idealistic. I thought that if we just worked together, we could solve all the problems that we're facing today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I am jaded. I am jaded. I have watched healthcare, housing, education, and conservation crumble in the last 7 years. So what am I going to do about it? I've created my own platform based on the riding, or my own platform for the riding that is based on the Green Party's platform, the fully costed Green Party platform. Let me remind you that we're the only party that have released not only a full platform, but a fully costed platform. And you can find it on my website at votejanet.ca. And let me tell you my priorities now. First of all, protect the Greenbelt, protect the waterfalls. This is a discussion of environmental sustainability. Stop selling out Ontario. A discussion on accountable government. Prosperous population, our population as a resource to be protected, which touches on healthcare, education, and affordable housing. Smart growth, which refers to physical expansion, sprawl, and infrastructure issues. And finally, green like money, which is a discussion on our economy. Thank you.
Janet Ergers from the Green Party, thank you very much. And rounding things out, the incumbent from the Progressive Conservative Party candidate, Donna Skelly.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I grew up in Northern Ontario, a very small town just outside of Sudbury, but I've spent most of my adult life right here in Hamilton, and I'm very invested in this city. I raised my 2 sons here, and I now have a grandson who calls Hamilton home. I spent over 30 years building a successful broadcast career. I have served on Hamilton City Council, and now I am seeking a 3rd term to represent the people of Flamborough-Glanbrook at Queen's Park. And I believe that this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime. This country, this province, this city is under attack by onerous, unnecessary tariffs threatened by U.S. President Donald Trump. Hamilton was built by the men and women in our steel industry, the workers at Stelco and Dofasco and the hundreds of other steel-related companies. And now their jobs and the jobs of millions of other Ontarians are at risk by historically high tariffs Trump may impose on Canadian goods. In this time of crisis, when others walked away, it was Ontario Premier Doug Ford who stepped in and stood up for Canada. We are in for a rough ride over the next 4 years, and there's only one leader who is capable of navigating these very turbulent waters, and that man is Doug Ford. On February 27th, vote for a strong economy, a strong future for you and your family. Stand up against the tariffs and stand with us. Doug Ford, Donna Skelly, and the PC Party of Ontario.
Donna Skelly from the Ontario Progressive Conservatives, thank you very much. And to all of our candidates who have joined us tonight, thank you all very much for being here and for those opening statements. Now, it is time to bring in our local media representatives. Tonight we have, from the Hamilton Spectator, Matt Christie, from CHCH News, Jason Gaidola, and Justin Chandler from CBC. Each of them will choose a candidate to answer their question, and then we'll open up the topic to any other candidates who wish to speak to it. So our first question comes from Mr. Matt Christie of the Hamilton Spectator. Mac.
Hi there, I'm Matt Christie from the Hamilton Spectator. This question is for all the candidates, but I'm going to direct it to Joshua. The City of Hamilton's planned stormwater fee, derided by some critics as a rain tax, has received pushback from farmers and other rural residents. What would you do as MPP to deal with the concerns of these farmers and rural residents as it relates to the stormwater fee?
Yeah, and farmers and rural residents and things like that. I'm a rural resident myself in the Upper Stony Creek area, and that they're the lifeblood of this riding. The majority of this riding is people that are living in rural areas and farmlands and some of our smaller communities and that. And they're concerned about rainwater. They're concerned about our wetlands or our greenbelt space and what happens with that water if we're going to be building over it in that. I side with the decision of we need to do what we can to ensure that these people are feeling supported, that they're feeling that their tax dollars are actually being used to deal with stormwater, to deal with drainage water and that. I was having a conversation with residents over by Garth and Rymel the other day who are concerned about the wetlands over there and the drainage that's going to happen and where that water is going to go in that. But people need to actually be receiving services for the amount of tax dollars that they're paying to the city, to the province, and to other members of our community, and that they need to be provided services.
Joshua, thank you for that response. Thank you to Mac Christie from The Spectator. This question is now open for debate amongst the other three, whoever would like to jump in on this particular question.
I'll
Lily?
start.
Yes.
Well, a stormwater management fee is to help the city actually deal with all the new stormwater infrastructure that's going to be possibly damaged in climate change that's coming. So somebody has to pay for stormwater protection for everybody. So what currently is happening is we're all paying for stormwater fees through our municipal taxes, and it's not covering people who have huge parking lots. But that's not farmers. Farmers don't have huge parking lots. So I believe Councillor Craig Cassar has implemented a green space credit for farmers. So if they've got hard surfaces within their farms, but the water that comes off those hard surfaces goes into the green space around them, into their farmland. then they don't need to be charged like
Yes, by all
like
means,
a
you may.
rural
This
parking
was
lot.
one of the most egregious taxes imposed by the City of Hamilton on the members of the agricultural community in Flamborough-Glanbrook. I was meeting with farmers, in fact, just last night, who were telling me that one farm in particular was going to be taxed $88,000 per year for a service that he didn't get.
Before the green
And the
space
city
credit,
is saying that they could possibly rebate some of that funds to farmers, but they don't believe that the city should be taking any funding from them. I mean, we hear often from the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals that they want to protect farmland and then support a tax that is egregious, unnecessary for a service that farmers don't even get. I thought it was a silly move. I brought a motion forward. It's at Queen's Park, and it has received support from the NDP and received support from the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Rural Affairs, the Minister of Housing, and this tax will go away. Municipalities, in my motion, will not be allowed to impose a stormwater fee on any agricultural piece of land if they don't receive service.
Well, I'll just say that services mean ditches, and if a lot of water's coming off your property, going into
Ditches are cleaned by the
city
farmers
has to-
themselves.
the
In
city
fact, with the
cleans them
farmer I
too.
was speaking to last night, and he's a dairy farmer, he can't get the city out to clean the ditches. The ditches do not cost $88,000 a year
No,
to
obviously.
maintain.
Obviously.
So to do this, it was a tax grab by the city of Hamilton, a foolish tax grab, and thankfully I was able to get a motion forward to stop this ridiculous unnecessary pressure, financial pressure on farmers in Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Any other responses? No, we will be moving on now. From CHCH, you'll recognize this name and face. It's Mr. Jason Guidola. Jason.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everybody. My question is actually to all the candidates, but I guess we'll start with Donna Skelly. In terms of party influence and where you stand within your own party, what are you telling voters about what type of influence and how much influence you have, knowing that they can go to you when it comes to addressing needs and sparking change in your riding?
It's interesting because when you are a member of provincial legislature, it's very different from city council, for example. So every week we would meet in our caucus meetings and we discuss contentious issues. We all have an opportunity to bring something forward that we want our party to consider. We meet with members within our own caucus, offline or outside of caucus, and with the Premier if we want something to go forward. This is a prime example, the tax that was just mentioned. It was something that was raised by the farmers in Flamborough-Glanbrook. This is a Hamilton solution to what could be an ugly situation for the agricultural sector right across Ontario. They brought it to me. I brought it to the cabinet members, the ministers. We talked about it. I crossed the floor. I talked to the critic for agriculture at the time, John Vantoff, who is with the NDP from the opposition. And we were able to bring this motion forward. So I think that there is an opportunity as an elected official to meet with members of your caucus, to meet with, on my part, with the Premier. He's very open. And to cabinet members if we have something that we want to push forward on behalf of our constituents.
Topic is open. If anyone would like to jump in. Yes, Janet.
Donna, I have a question. According to your 1.9 star Google rating, you don't answer calls, you don't answer emails, you don't show up when people need your help, and you vote incorrectly based on what your constituents want. So
Let's keep this actually directed to the question that was posed by Mr. Guidola first. So if we want to respond to that, let's do that. Does anyone have a response to that particular question?
Well, obviously, the NDP often will come up with their own motions. A lot of like France Jalina, for instance, in the Nickel Belt, she is always bringing forth her own motions to bring bills to the floor. So the NDP is open to what their MPPs want to bring forward.
Wonderful. Any other responses? Joshua,
Yeah,
yes.
and this is something too that our Liberal team is committed to doing, and myself too, really, and kind of on what our Green Party candidate said as well, which I'll leave until later on in that. But I'm committed to listening to residents here, to really listening what your concerns are, and going back to the party, which is something I've already done in that, to ensure that we're able to actually present some of these petitions and deal with some of these concerns that are being felt in Waterdown, in Upper Stony Creek, and that. Residents shouldn't have to suffer because their current MPP doesn't answer them or doesn't get back to them at all about their petitions that they're sending.
Thank you all for your responses. I'm assuming there's no more to that. Wonderful.
Can I say one thing?
Yes,
So I
please.
just want to say that the Green Party has, our elected MPPs have a great history of bringing motions to the floor. We do tons of work, and as you know,
You can bring them to the floor, but you can't get them passed because you can't form government.
well, because
So
of a
it's
PC
important.
majority.
Exactly. And it's a majority based on, obviously, the majority of people in Ontario want to support a
I don't
conservative
think,
government,
I think,
just
no,
like
no,
the majority of people.
No, Doug Ford got
in-
elected with 11% of Ontario's voting.
The
so
majority
I don't think
of
that's a
seats
majority.
held in Ontario are
11%.
held by the progressive
The
conservatives.
majority of people in the
Yeah,
last
first past
election
the
didn't
post.
even vote during the last
That's
election.
because they weren't given options other than the Conservatives to vote for, and you weren't inspiring them. And we're probably going to see a low voter turnout now.
Well,
because
this is a
we don't
surprise
have-
winter election.
Because we don't have
With no
a
notice.
very attractive opposition. You're going to see, I'm very confident, you will see another Conservative government because the people of Ontario trust us. They
Studies
trust
show that when
they like
people
our
don't
record,
vote,
and
Conservatives
they
win. When people do
Well,
vote
then
in areas
maybe
of
it's
high
time that
turnout,
I think
the
it's-
left parties win. So, unfortunately, yes, we are expecting low turnout. Because people are so disillusioned with Doug Ford. They're grossed out. They don't want to vote because we don't see progress happening. We don't see any options for things to improve.
I think that's when you encourage people and you entice them to vote. This isn't a change election. This is an election that will return government because people in Ontario trust Doug Ford. They
don't
like
think
what
so.
we've
No, we
done,
don't.
and that's why you don't
Maybe
feel at the
11%
doors
of
that
people in
it's
Ontario
a
trust
change
Doug Ford.
election.
That's pretty bad
And I
track
think it's
record.
important if the other parties feel that their party isn't being represented in the legislature, then you're not inspiring people to vote.
Let's be clear about one thing. This is an election that's been called by Premier Ford and your PC party to deliver what he calls, quote, he wants the largest mandate in Ontario history to be delivered back to him through this election, this unnecessary winter election and that. And I completely agree with the other two
We need a
candidates here. on
strong
that.
mandate to navigate these very turbulent
I
waters.
find it
you had a strong
hilarious
mandate
that Doug
already
Ford
previously
is asking
throughout
for
your
mandate.
previous
Where
government
was his
term.
mandate
Okay,
for
everyone, to our candidates, thank you very much. We have to watch all the talking over, and I think we've exhausted the original question, so we will move on now. From the CBC Hamilton, Justin Chandler from the media has a question for our candidates.
Hello there. For Donna Skelly, your fellow PC candidates in other Hamilton ridings are not participating in these debates. You are. Was that a strategic decision by the party, and why is it important for you to be here?
It was nothing to do with the party. I just feel I'm comfortable in this format. I grew up in television. I spent many years here. In fact, I actually worked here at Cable 14. So I just felt that I wanted to be here, and I'm here.
And no other PC felt the need. They're applying for a job, but they didn't show up to the job interview.
Yeah. Would you
So-
hire a plumber that didn't show up, who did the services? Sorry.
It's very disrespectful.
This is Miss Skelly's once a year appearance, once every 4 years, to residents here in Flamborough-Glanbrook to show that she's still here and that she wants to rehire on the job that she's not completing, where she's not listening to you, she's not listening to your concerns,
Where she
and
has
she's
a
not working
1.9
in your
star
best
rating.
interest at all.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that, Justin, for that question. Would anyone else like to jump in on that, or are we moving on? Looks like we are moving on. Okay. As per the panel and the candidates, thank you very much for that. Of course, thank you to our wonderful media. That concludes our first round of questions from our media panel. As mentioned earlier, though, we've been collecting not just questions, a lot of questions from you, the viewers, on X at Cable 14, and of course by email at election@cable14.com. So we'll give all of our candidates here a chance to respond to this particular question as you wish. Now, this question comes from Paul in Waterdown. He says poor provincial planning and budgeting means years often go by before parks, schools, or rec centers are built for new developments. What would your government do to accelerate community assets for families moving into new homes? This is not directed to anyone particular, so I will start off and I will pick Lily Noble to start this question, and then it will be open up to the rest of the panel.
Right. Well, unfortunately, when developers start building, they don't necessarily have to have a school in place or playgrounds in place. They just build. And to have a really livable community, you need everything in place. And the people of Waterdown have waited years and years for a new school in the East End, and they're suffering with Mary Hopkins being over capacity. So you have to actually fund for schools to be built. If you're going to have all that development, you need the schools. So the NDP will make sure that schools are built and they're actually funded and staffed properly. And that's what we'll do.
With that question is you're confusing municipal and provincial jurisdiction. Perks like parks, et cetera, fall under municipal jurisdiction. Schools do fall under provincial jurisdiction. And you talked about wanting a new school, and I'm very proud that I've brought a brand new school that's going to be built within 2 years in Waterdown, an elementary public school. We've just announced a brand new high school for Binbrook, excuse me, with 1,000 students, and another brand new school in Binbrook. As well, hundreds of new spaces for students at 3 other schools, if I could just reach Janet Lee Elementary in Stony Creek, St. Paul Catholic Elementary School also in Stony Creek, and Mount Hope Elementary School. Along with the student spaces, there will be plenty of additional daycare spaces. So yes, it's important. We have invested record amount of money in education, and it's paying off here in Flamborough-Glanbrook. We're bringing schools to the communities.
Ms. Skelly talks a lot about the education funding that her and her government have delivered, and same with housing and other projects and that. But you need to be able to work with municipalities, to the question that was pointed, to be able to work to develop around city plannings, to work to develop to ensure that we have the space for our schools, that our children and teachers are actually able to.
And I work closely. In fact, I've had many conversations with the mayor of this community. I meet often with the city councillors within Flamborough-Glanbrook to discuss certain initiatives, and they've raised many things with me. We chat, how can we do it? What kind of funding can we get? I work with community groups. Of course, there's Trillium grants, excuse me, sports grants, all kinds of community grants, and people will reach out to me and my office. We work very closely with them. We delivered a number of grants for communities, for schools, and for places of worship, for security, etc. I think we've handed out probably 10 or 15 just to set up security in places of worship within the community. So we work very closely with community organizations to make sure they are aware of the grants that are available and that they can get access to them. And if they have any difficulty in trying to figure out how to access that funding, we'll work with each individual group to make sure that they can put in their application.
I just want to go back to the original question and to what Ms. Scully was saying, that she listens to residents. I met with residents in Waterdown a number of weeks ago now to talk about some of the issues that they're facing in that, with their housing, with their planning, with their roads not being plowed at all. And right now, a lot of those residents, those are municipal issues, and we need to work with our municipal counterparts in that, which I've chatted with many of the city councillors currently and past throughout this campaign as well. But we need to work together to ensure that they're actually getting services delivered to them. And when a lot of these residents have come to your office, like they've talked with me about provincial planning, about wanting more schools in their community, or about the underfunding of these schools that Ms. Skelly is doing.
Three schools in Flamborough-Glanbrook.
They're not getting answers at all. They're not getting the answers that they need.
And that's within, and our commitment is
Every
within
school board
2
is in
years.
debt.
We're building schools
Running a deficit
quickly.
right now.
We want to get them done. We are actually taking a new approach when we build schools, not just in Flamborough-Glanbrook and Hamilton, but right across Ontario. We're looking at modular units so that we're not reinventing the wheel every time. We can look at how do you get schools built. Communities want them. Flamborough-Glanbrook is one of the fastest growing communities in all of Ontario. And we have seen it. And I've met and worked closely with a number of the parent council groups to ensure that we can get these schools. To deliver 3 schools in a year is huge. A brand new high school, brand new in Binbrook.
These schools aren't actually delivering
Lily,
for our
Joshua,
kids
or Janet
and
like to
for
get in?
our teachers at all.
They're schools for the
I
kids.
come from a family
The
of
schools-
educators. A lot
no,
of
but
my
the
family
schools
members
are for the
either
children.
in
Let's have
educators
Joshua
or-
speak here.
A lot of my family members are either in the education system or teachers and that, or work in the healthcare system and that. And these family members of mine are in these classrooms. They're in these schools that Miss Skelly and her PC government are delivering. And they're not actually doing the job that they're designed to do, which is teach our children and provide education in that. There's underfunding with the resources that teachers are being provided. There's underfunding with the teachers themselves.
We spent a
teachers
record
are not
$39
being
billion.
supported
That's
at all.
a record in all of Ontario history on
You've cut
education last year.
No.
That's $2
$1,500
billion
per student.
larger than the year before. And the other thing that we've
It's not
done with
enough.
education, parents have asked us to return to the basics, which we
It's not
have.
enough.
We've gone back to the basics and we're focusing on STEM. That's science, technology, engineering, and math, reading and writing. We've done things that parents want, and it's reflective in the EQAO scores.
Donna,
Math
thank you
scores
very
are
much.
up and writing scores are up.
Appreciate that. Lots of time has been going through this. Lily, Janet, would you like to jump in on this? I know Lily's been saying a few things. Janet?
Go ahead, Janet. You have-
Okay, I just want to say that the Green Party is a huge proponent of community hubs. Sprawl is not the answer here. We need to be building density where we already have services, such as community hubs, such as schools. We need to increase funding for schools, building, infrastructure, all that. The Green Party would like to increase funding for local libraries, community centers, and neighborhood coalitions. We're going to provide free and low-cost community hubs in schools, support municipalities to create infill green spaces in all municipalities. We'll amend zoning rules to allow for small businesses, such as corner stores and cafes, to open within residential neighborhoods. I think we really need to focus on improving what we already have where we already have it, instead of growing outwards, as we see in this riding. Sprawl is not the answer. Infrastructure is expensive, including schools, including community hubs, including water mains. It's all expensive, and if we're just building out, we're not building upon what we already have.
Lily Noble?
Agree everything you said right now, Janet. I just want to mention that every school board in Ontario is running a deficit. They're pulling money out of their funds for the essentials. They don't have enough funding. Since Ford got in,
They shouldn't be recording
$1,500 a
deficits.
student,
This is
$1,500 per
historical
student
funding.
less than they used
Let's
to
have
be
Lily
getting.
have her say here.
Thank you. Since Ford got in, every student is being given $1,500 less than when he started. And those kind of cuts mean kids aren't learning as well in the schools, teachers are under stress, there's not enough support, and that needs to change with the NDP.
And I'll just have to address that because it is historical funding, 20% more than last year. Boards have to learn how to manage their funding as well, but we've also hired 9,000 more educators. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and it was something that I was very, very pleased to see happen, we've taken cell phones out of classrooms. That was a big, big, big ask by
Donna?
educators and by parents.
Thank you very much for your words. Great discussion around that particular question. We do have to move on, though. Time is not allowing us to go deeper into that one. We have a question actually from Chad from Millgrove. He has a question directed to Janet Ehrgers. Of course, each of you will have an opportunity to respond if you wish. Chad says, your campaign website states you currently reside in Flamborough, while it appears you actually live in Brantford. Will this distance impede your ability to properly serve the riding if you are elected?
Hi, Chad. Thank you for the question. I was hoping that someone would ask me this. So the reason I do live in Brantford, my website doesn't say I live in Flamborough. My website says that I've lived most of my life in Flamborough, which is the truth. I grew up in Greensville. I've lived in Linden. I grew up on a farm, so I know the issues of this riding. I currently live in Canesville, which is essentially Flamborough adjacent. It's really not that far. It only took me 20 minutes to get here today. I don't think it's a fair question to ask, how is someone living outside of the riding going to be a barrier? Because the reason I don't own a home in Flamborough is because the average home price is something around $1.2 million. So I own a home. I have a mortgage. I bought my first house last year, and the reason I chose Canesville, Brantford, is because I couldn't afford Flamborough. So maybe with my big fat MPP salary when I get elected, I will be able to afford a home in Flamborough, and I can guarantee you that I will be back as soon as I can. My dream is to live here and raise my children here. So thank you for the question, and I'm here to stay. Yeah.
Do we have any other comments to that question? I'm seeing blank looks around. We will continue to move on here. Looks like we have a question here from Travis. The question from Travis is, would you support creating a provincial low-interest loan program to help get more rental and missing middle homes built? We will start this question off. Joshua, we'll go to you for this.
Yeah, and housing is a big concern for many residents here in Flamborough-Glanbrook. It's something that I hear a lot at the doors, a lot through phone calls and that, and having these conversations with people. And that's why our Ontario Liberal Party and our team have committed to ensuring that people are able to actually get the housing that they build. We've committed to scrapping the developmental fees for some families. We've committed to removing some of the hidden fees and hidden taxes for families that want to downsize, seniors, for new families that want to move into our riding. Like Ms. Skelly said, we're one of the fastest growing ridings and communities in Hamilton, in Waterdown, in Bimbrook, and Upper Stony Creek. And we need to be able to accommodate these people that actually want to move into Flamborough-Glanbrook, that want to start a life, that want to have a family here. And through some of the measures that we've set out in that, I truly believe that we're able to do it. Our housing strategy and our housing plan, when it was first delivered and unveiled, was endorsed by people from all parties and that. And it's a plan that is going to work, and it's a plan that's going to deliver more housing, unlike this PC government, who is below their targets for this year and last year.
Further comments?
Most of the purpose-built rentals were built in the 60s and 70s, and I've spoken to people who have been involved in that industry, and they said there were a lot of incentives at the time, so it is something that has to be considered, I think, moving forward, because we have not seen that amount of new units built over the course of the past, 40, 60 years. So something has to change, obviously. It was interesting. I was in Mount Hope a couple of weeks ago looking at a new development and how they're building homes to provide an additional revenue for the homeowner, and it was a very interesting prospect. Instead of just having a basement suite, the secondary suite is on the first level with bedrooms in the basement, and then the primary suite is actually the second and third level, or second and third levels. It was very interesting, and I think we're going to have to consider looking outside the box if we want to build more of these homes, not just for rental, but also for ownership.
Janet?
So in Flamborough-Glanbrook and in Hamilton, we have both an affordable housing and a housing affordability issue. The biggest barrier to each is increasing demand and stagnant supply. In Ontario, most renters spend over 30% of their income on rent, their pre-tax income on rent. 185,000 households are on the wait list for social housing, and according to census data, the average pre-tax income in our riding is $46,800, whereas, as I just mentioned, the average home price in Flamborough is $1.2 million and $862,000 in Glanbrook. Do you see the disconnect here? To address affordable housing, Greens will work with nonprofits to build 250,000 new affordable nonprofit and co-op homes and 60,000 permanent supportive homes with guaranteed funding. To address housing affordability, Greens will mandate 20% affordable units in new housing projects, update planning laws to expand intensification corridors along transit routes, remove development charges on units under 2,000 square feet built within urban boundaries, and implement a speculation tax on those owning over 2 units, implement an anti-flipping tax on quick turnaround
Janet,
sales.
thank you very much for that. We do have to start to move on. I know Lily wanted to get in quickly before we get into our next part.
I'd like to jump in because the Conservatives are wondering where all these affordable homes are going to come from. Like, they've got no reason to figure out for themselves maybe that it's their responsibility. And the NDP will actually get involved with building homes. We're going to provide public land. We're going to help the nonprofits. We're going to help the co-ops. We're going to help make more non-market housing and double the amount of affordable homes for people, because we need to provide affordable homes, and it's got to be the government that comes in, because developers will not be doing it for us.
And to jump back in, sorry to interrupt you, Lily, we have an addiction here in Flamborough-Glanbrook to essentially single-family detached homes and townhomes. We need to focus on building other types of housing. As we discussed in our question about community hubs, we need to increase density, and we need to increase the types of homes that we're building. If you look at Montreal, for example, there's 4-plexes, there's 6-plexes, and when you put people...
Waterdown has 4-plexes and 6-plexes. A lot of communities you're going to find too also push back on high. I mean, if you had a 20 or 30 or 40-story proposal coming into Waterdown, I can guarantee that there'd be a lot of pushback. A lot of neighborhoods don't want to see that kind of
we're not saying
disruption.
to put 40-story buildings
but
in
all of
neighborhoods,
all
but
those
along
different
transit
diverse.
routes doesn't make sense.
All of
Highway
those.
5 would be an excellent place for
You'd have to
density.
talk to communities about whether they want to see that kind of intensification. There's always a give and take within the community, and I think that you do want to build around, and we are encouraging people to build around transit hubs. It's one of our platforms in our transit strategy. But not everybody, we're seeing pushback on Upper Stony Creek Mountain. They don't want to see high density and high towers in a lot of their communities. So I think there's a give and take
Donna,
in a lot of these.
thank you very much for that. Thank you to the whole panel, and of course, thank you to everyone who submitted questions. Of course, we do appreciate it, and we're doing our very best to get to as many of them as we can. As you can appreciate, we only have 90 minutes. Again, to our candidates here, Flamborough-Glanbrook, that wraps up round 1 of the questions and answer portion of this debate. Now, before we continue with more questions, any candidate not invited to participate in our debate tonight, they had the opportunity to record a statement. Let's hear now from the other candidates in the Flamborough-Glanbrook riding. Kristen Halfpenny.
Hello, my name is Kristen Halfpenny, and I am running for MPP of Flamborough-Glanbrook with the New Blue Party of Ontario. Formed in 2020 by Jim and Belinda Karahalios, after years of failed attempts to make positive changes from within existing establishment parties, the New Blue Party plans to bring accountability and transparency to our political systems. After Belinda was ejected from Doug Ford's caucus for defending the rights and concerns of her constituents, New Blue made its debut. The 5th largest and fastest growing party, we are truly grassroots and held our first policy convention this past June, where policies submitted by our members were discussed and voted on. The resultant policy declaration is found on our website. Did you know that only 3.2% of the land in Ontario is suitable for growing crops? The Minister zoning orders, MZOs, that have existed for decades were rarely used prior to Doug Ford's leadership and are being executed at exponentially higher rates than before. Paving over farmland and the greenbelt is not the answer to a growing population and a need for more affordable housing. Accommodating growth needs to be done thoughtfully and responsibly with respect for the farmers. Wind turbines have taken over our landscape, causing health problems due to the loud, low-frequency sounds they produce. There were so many complaints about nausea, headaches, disturbed sleep, and cognitive and psychological impairment that in 2016, the Minister of the Environment halted their installation. The courts overturned this order, forcing people to leave their homes, not to mention the damaging effects to local well water, migratory birds, and other wildlife. With only about a 25-year lifespan, they are made with materials that are mostly not recyclable and require a ridiculous amount of effort and energy to transport and build. And I'm just scratching the surface. The worst part is that we sell this electricity to the US for pennies on the dollar, and then we pay a much higher rate to buy it back when we need it. I want to address one last issue today. Since 2020, a multitude of nurses, doctors, and other healthcare professionals, along with many others, were fired for exercising their God-given right to bodily autonomy, refusing an experimental treatment that never should have been mandatory. Where those mandates still exist, they must be eliminated. We need to hire back experienced healthcare professionals with compensation. We need to start clearing the backlog of patients waiting for life-saving diagnoses, scans, and surgeries, and create more options for family doctors, of which we need so desperately. The PCs are not blue, and they're not for you. Vote New Blue, and let us stand up for you. Visit newblueontario.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen Halfpenny, for recording that statement. And for our viewers at home, if you miss any part of this broadcast or want to see candidates from the other Hamilton area ridings, and I suggest you do tune in and watch those, you'll find all of our debates on demand at cable14.com, free for public viewing and sharing, all courtesy of our good friends at Kojiko and Rogers. It all starts as of 12 a.m. on Saturday, February the 22nd. Okay, Hamilton, let's move on now to round 2 of tonight's media questions. He's back from the Hamilton Spectator, Mac Christie, to ask a question, 1 minute response, and then we'll be open forum.
This question is for all the candidates, but I'll direct it to Donna. Gridlock has been an issue in Waterdown for years, and the upcoming bridge replacement on Dundas, in combination with the long-delayed Waterdown bypass, is going to cause more issues. And then the construction of the long-awaited Highway 5 and 6 interchange is slated to get underway in 2026, which is still in combination with the bridge. What would you do as MPP to advocate for the residents and to deal with the gridlock in the community?
It is bad. It is really bad. I mean, just trying to move from the Burlington side of Waterdown through to Highway 6 is impossible, especially if you're there during a rush hour, if you will. But I think we've got to get the bypass built. That is, as you know, it's a municipal issue, and it's had its complications. I'm not sure how the province can come in and do anything to expedite that. I will tell you that the interchange at 5 and 6 is moving forward. We should be moving it through this summer. There was a delay because of some of the businesses that had to be relocated right at the interchange, and the properties that they were looking for to be able to keep their business afloat and keep 50 and 60 people employed. It was a bit of a challenge, so it delayed the project, but that will be going through. But I think that we have to deal with congestion. That's one of the reasons why our government is very determined to, for example, widen the 403 between Burlington and Niagara, and to continue to build roads and highways, because it costs time and it also costs the economy.
Let's continue to move on. Janet?
Transportation is Ontario's largest source of emissions at 36%. Investing in public transit, including cost sharing with municipalities, is key to smart growth. As we can see in this riding, sprawl-based development has made transit inefficient, leading to car dependency. We also have some of the worst traffic in the world in Ontario. We need to both reduce the number of vehicles on the road and reduce our reliance on combustion engines. Historically, our communities have been designed with sprawl in mind, and today it is challenging to navigate Hamilton, and especially Flamborough-Glanbrook, without a vehicle. So the Green Party is going to restore the 50% provincial cost share for transit operations and support electrification plans for all municipal and transit systems, establish a clean, affordable, accessible intercity electric bus service to connect all communities in the province. We're going to cancel Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass and ban 400 series highways in the greenbelt. We're also going to expand all-day two-way GO service, and we're going to be creating dedicated truck lanes on the Highway 407.
Janet, thank you very much. We would like to continue on if our other candidates, please feel free to jump in at any moment.
It's certainly gridlock when you're trying to get in from the east side of Waterdown. My understanding is that the North Bypass is being held up at the moment because there hasn't been enough consultation with the First Nations who own the land up there. So I would encourage the city to do proper consultation and get it done as fast as possible.
So let's be clear about one thing to start with in that. We need roads, we need infrastructure, we need bridges and other stuff like that too. But we also need to invest in our public transportation sector in that. We need to invest in our GO train services. We need to invest in our municipal transit services like HRS and some of our other city buses and things like that. However, the investments in these we need to be working with our municipalities on to ensure that ridings such as Flamborough-Glanbrook here, where we're so rural and so far spread out, can actually access some of these services and that. So while we need to be continuing to build our roads, continue to improve our infrastructure, that we need other options for people, because people shouldn't be sitting in congestion for 2-3 hours of their day if they have to go to Toronto to work or just even across our riding at all.
I agree with you. I think that there's got to be more. Somehow people in Hamilton should be able to go from Waterdown down to the GO train down at the harbourfront, and there is limited public service. There are ways of whether it's electrified buses, which I think is one of the things that we should be looking at. But again, it's a municipal jurisdiction. But I do believe it would be wise for municipalities in the province to perhaps look at how we can integrate the services when you've got a GO system that's running by the province and municipal transit.
And that's very positive to hear from Ms. Skelly, I will admit in that. But these are the services that we need to kind of deal with the traffic issues right now that we're facing while we're not paving over the greenbelt at all, and we're not destroying our environment or building a fantasy tunnel under the GTA.
And we need to be focusing on building houses where the transit services make sense and already exist, so that we can use the money instead of expanding, building bus routes to nowhere, new bus routes. Why don't we just put the people where the bus route already is and upgrade the buses, spend the money on upgrading the infrastructure that we already have?
Thank you very much to our candidates. Doesn't look like anyone else wants to jump on that. We will continue now with CHCH, a question from Jason Gaidola. Jason.
My next question is directed to Donna. In regards to development, urban boundary, we know there was recent legislative change to cut the red tape, and we know developers can still apply for applications and even take it for an appeal. Given the obviously strong opposition towards protecting lands and expanding that urban boundary, what type of assurances would a PC government give if there was more legislative power to allow that development to see through?
Well, the urban boundary, any changes to the urban boundary now is really at the discretion of municipalities, and we're talking about Hamilton here. So the urban boundary won't be changed unless they want the urban boundary to expand. Of course, that also means that they have to meet their housing targets, and if they can meet their housing targets within the existing urban boundary, then that should be fine. In terms of the greenbelt, which was, of course, a contentious issue, you probably heard the Premier in his debate earlier this week. He has said he has apologized for doing it. We actually have legislation that has passed that says any changes to the greenbelt can't be carried out unless there is an open and transparent process, and it has to go back into the government and pass through the legislature. But I do want to mention that, prior to, after the greenbelt was created, the previous Liberal government opened it up 17 times, and we've never heard anybody talk about it, but 17 times there were pieces of land taken out of the Greenbelt. Our government, just to make it very, very clear, the Greenbelt is 2,000 acres larger today than it was 2 years ago. We put land in the Greenbelt. It is actually larger than it was when we formed government in 2018.
Let's open it up to others now.
The land that was put back was hazard land anyway. You couldn't build on it anyway. But in terms of saying that only Hamilton can change its urban boundary, right now, Bill 185, that's the Conservatives, say that if a developer wants to bring a piece of land and put it into the urban boundary, he can just go to the Ontario Land Tribunal and get whatever he wants. So their government has allowed urban boundary expansion against the wishes of municipalities. So
Ms. Skelly wants to stand here and lie directly to the people of Flamborough-Glanbrook, just like she did in 2022 when she stood here and said that they're not going to open up the Greenbelt, that they're not going to change the city of Hamilton's urban boundaries against city council wishes at all. And here she is again, standing here in front of all of us today, saying the same thing again, when she can't be trusted on it at all. And while she's committed to this before, we've seen this government, this PC government, open up the land belt, try to pave right over it.
Why did the Liberal Party open it 17 times?
Well, we're committed to, like we've said before in that too, if a city comes to us.
No, but I'm asking you, why did the Liberal government open up the Greenbelt 17 times?
If a city comes to us and is not able to build any more housing at all within the land that they have at all.
That wasn't why. It was for development. One was for a golf course.
We're able to work.
We put a golf course.
Ms. Skelly wants to talk about golf courses now. We're talking about the Greenbelt.
That was the Greenbelt.
No.
They opened it 17 times. When your party was in power, the Greenbelt was open 17 times. We don't talk about that.
Was it
and
7,400 acres? 7,400 acres, though?
Exactly. And when we did open it, it was to provide housing areas for cities and that. It was done in consultation with members of the community, and that was advised on and repeated on throughout all those times that we've opened it and that. And we've committed to doing the same thing again. We're not going to touch the Greenbelt. All these candidates here, especially Ms. Skelly, wants to stand here and talk so highly about the Greenbelt. That was something that our Liberal governments committed and done and created in that. So we're committed to continuing to work with members of our community, members of the residents that live on the Greenbelt to protect it, including myself. I live over in Upper Stony Creek on the Greenbelt in that area and that. We don't want to see roads be built on our Greenbelt. We don't want to see additional infrastructure tear down some of our environmental conservation areas at all. They need to be protected. And Ms. Skelly and her PC government continue to lie over and over again about how they're going to protect it.
Joshua, thank you very much for that. We will continue on now. Our next question will be coming from the CBC. Hamilton, Justin Chandler. Justin.
I'll start with Lily for this one. Residents of this riding in Stony Creek have complained for several years now about a stench from a GFL dump site, which the province allowed to expand in 2019. What would you do to resolve this and prevent a similar situation from happening in the future?
Thank you. I've heard from a lot of residents about this stench, and they're very concerned about their health and their ability to just sit in their backyard and not feel like they need to throw up. So this is a very big concern. And I've done a lot of this kind of stuff in Sudbury, where people complain about either high nickel levels or chromite smelter coming to their city. So I would meet with them and discuss further what their concerns are, and then investigate what GFL is doing, because they've been asked to stop this liquids that were seeping out of their dump and to deodorize it so it didn't smell. And they haven't actually done it in a way that satisfies the community. So there are regulations against doing this kind of stuff when you're running a dump, and maybe they need to be fined or their licenses need to be removed. But something has to be done because people deserve to be able to enjoy their neighborhoods.
Donna likes to talk about how her government amended our Environmental Protection Act in 2020 to increase fines on landfill operators. But how many fines do you think have been levied? None.
So I actually live over in the area where this landfill is over in Upper Stony Creek, and there are days when it is so bad that even our family, we're not able to open our windows at all because of the stench that's coming from this landfill and that. And while there are fines in place right now that could be levied by the provincial government and the ministry, they've never been set at all. They've never been fined at all for destroying the environment at all and putting people's health and safety at risk over there. A lot of families that moved into this area were told that this landfill was going to be closed and that there wasn't going to be any more expansions to it in 2019 like happened. A lot of these families are worried about their kids' safety. They're worried about schools going up in the area now as well. I had the opportunity with our Green Party candidate a few weeks ago to sit down with some of these members of this group, this advocacy group, to discuss some of their concerns. And a lot of them are worried about their health. They're worried about their safety. And they're worried about Miss Skelly's non-response to it at all. They've reached out to her office and haven't had an answer at all. They actually had to go to a Liberal MPP at the time to actually have their petition presented in the Legislative Assembly and that. So, like I've said to
I just want to address the petition. That was a really important thing. The petition, when you present a petition in the legislature, it has to be addressed to the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. It wasn't, and it was. I brought it to the clerk. There were 4,000 signatures. They have to be original signatures. You can't just wipe it out. I brought it to the clerk to table it, and they wouldn't accept it. It happens all the time. But I also had,
Where were you along the way to assist?
but I want to just go through what has happened, and I want to also say it is horrific. The smells that were, they were pungent, they were coming out during the spring and summer of 2023, and continued on sporadically through the summer of 2024. And we had brought in the Ministry of the Environment. They have been monitoring the air quality almost every day. They have a van that goes around and checks it. The Board of Health with the City of Hamilton is looking into whether there are any hazardous chemicals. At this point, the Board of Health has ruled that it isn't dangerous. Having said that, the ministry has an ongoing investigation. The reason why there haven't been any fines is because that investigation is not complete. It doesn't mean there will be some, but it could result in fines. So it just hasn't been completed yet.
Others?
I think you have to gain the trust of the residents there. And if a test is done when it's not actually smelling, and then you get a little check mark.
They're not done when they're just not.
Fine.
They're going
Then they
different
don't believe
times of the
it.
day.
They're
and
not,
I'm not just
They're
a different
not.
time. Well, they are. I know. I've worked with the Ministry of the Environment, and they're taking out.
That have been in the area. Some of them have been on the phone with the ministry when these trucks have gone around, and they're not even stopping at all sometimes in the area to actually take these air quality monitoring tests at all. They're just driving right through the neighborhood and going on their way and continuing to leave residents there with this stench.
I hope
as our current
that isn't
MPP
the case,
refuses to
because
listen
I'm
to their
being told
concerns.
by the ministry that is not the case. And I feel for these residents. Believe me, it is a horrific, as you said, you've experienced experienced it.
Yeah.
And I've been up there and I've met with them in the playgrounds. We had virtual meetings every month. If I wasn't on the call, my staff were on the call every month with GFL ministry representatives and community residents. But there is an ongoing investigation. We just don't have the results of it yet.
We know that GFL is a bad actor across North America. They ignore orders regularly, and they have a history across North America of being a problem neighbor. I myself read the 2019 environmental assessment that went with the proposal to expand, and honestly, it was written like someone had a gun to their head when they were writing it. There were real concerns in there. The staff recommended a conditional approval, which would include continuous monitoring of air quality concerns. To me, it looks like the approval was waved through by the Environment Minister without much concern for the concerns of these residents. And also, one thing that we're not talking about is in this environmental assessment report, there are concerns about the stormwater management system at this dump. The leachate is incredibly high, and the existence of this dump on top of our escarpment in a previous quarry, on top of fractured bedrock, around our community water drinking systems, we're not addressing those things either. So the stink is obviously the biggest concern today, but what if with increasing climate change, increasing storms, increasing water, rainfall.
Janet, thank you very much. We hear your point. We do have to continue to move on, though, because we're going to be moving on to the open forum. So with that said, to our candidates, thank you so much for your time to this point. And a big thank you to our media panel, Matt Christie, Jason Gaidola, and Justin Chandler, for being here at tonight's debate. We appreciate each of you. It is now time for our open forum. Each candidate will have 1 minute to raise a topic or question and ask another candidate to answer. The candidate who has asked the question will have 1 minute. I will be cutting you off if I need to stay on time to respond without interruption from anyone else. After that, anyone then can jump in on the particular topic that was originally raised. We will be keeping a close eye on the time to ensure that each candidate has the opportunity to ask their question, and we do ask that you keep responses to about a minute or so. Just before tonight's broadcast, Cable 14 randomly drew numbers to determine the order the candidates will be asking their questions. So, first up, Joshua Bell, your question and with who you should be answering it first.
Yes, wonderful. My question will be directed to our incumbent now, Ms. Skelly, in that we're currently in a healthcare crisis right now, and that it's something my own family has been affected by, and that with the long wait times and that. Very close family member of mine having to be rushed to the hospital after there was no rooms at all anymore. And it wasn't until the very end point where they were almost at the end stage of their life where they actually were able to get a space into the hospital. And that we have over 2,000 people on wait lists and that for surgeries, for MRIs and that in this hospital. But instead of actually focusing on these important issues that we're hearing at the doors, we're hearing on the phones and that, you and your government are focused on a tunnel. So I'm just hoping you can clarify for us today as to whether or not you actually would support diverting and not supporting a tunnel being built, and instead using that money to invest in our healthcare system, invest in our nurses, invest in our doctors, and the over 9,000 people here in our riding that do not have access to a family doctor at all or medical services that they need and require.
Thank you for that question. We have spent an historic amount of money on healthcare. We spent $85 billion this past year in healthcare. That does not include $50 billion towards building new hospitals across Ontario.
How much
we
of
lead
that
the
went to
country.
private clinics?
Let's have Donna respond. She has a minute.
Thank you. We lead, actually, the country with the shortest wait times for critical surgeries and the highest attachment at 90% of primary care providers. One of the things I'm really proud of is a program called Learn and Stay. We will cover the cost of, and you might know about this being from Sudbury, but cover the cost of physicians and nurses' education as long as they agree to work in rural and northern areas that are underserviced. We've also added 340 undergraduate, and 551 residency spots, 2 new medical schools. This compares to the Liberals that actually eliminated 50 medical residency positions. That's 450 doctors who would be practicing in Ontario today. We are investing just under $2 billion to connect every person in Ontario to a primary care team made up of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, midwives by 2029.
We are into the open forum portion now. Anyone can jump in. Janet, I know you wanted to have something
I
to
just
say.
want to come back to the private for-profit clinic point here, because I'd like to explain something to people, because I don't know if people understand what's happening. So instead of strengthening public health care, the Ford government is diverting funds to for-profit clinics. And what this means is OHIP is outsourcing surgeries to private clinics or hiring temporary nurses, and our public system is paying for it. So it's not that people are paying for their own hip replacement or their own knee surgery. This is covered by OHIP because it's overflow from our system. It's called starve the beast. That's what they call it in the States. You break the system by underfunding it, you complain about how bad the public system is, and then you force people to go to private care because there's no other options. Studies show that in provinces that outsource, wait times are longer, costs are higher to the public purse, with hip and knee replacements costing taxpayers over double. My question is, why is Ontario's purse paying for the profits of healthcare investors?
Anyone else? Lily, yes,
And to add
please.
to that, Doug Ford approved 18,000 long-term care beds, but they were for-profit long-term care facilities, the same ones that had the highest deaths during COVID. So he's diverting money for for-profit long-term care, and he's spent the lowest per person spending on healthcare in Canada. So we're underfunding our healthcare. And you're right, it starves the beast, and then more privatization will come because Americans want to come in with the corporations and take over our public healthcare.
Joshua?
I just want to go back to Ms. Scully's answer here, because it was really a answer of what they've supposedly done with all the funds that they've been given by our federal government to the province to support our healthcare system in that. Right now, Ontario's healthcare system is underfunded. We're spending less than we're actually receiving on our healthcare system right now. And where is that extra money going? No one knows at all. It's going to be building a tunnel. It's going to a foreign-owned spa for PC donors and PC MPPs to go and get a pedicure and manicure at after they've done nothing for our communities. We need real healthcare funding right now in our communities so that people can access doctors. Rural members of our community have infrastructure to actually go and get the care that they need, instead of investing in these tunnels that are, quite frankly, not needed right now.
Janet?
I just wanted to add on to Lily's point about COVID and long-term care homes. During COVID, 3,800 residents of for-profit long-term care homes died due to severe neglect, inadequate conditions, and immense suffering. The Army had to come in to help us, guys. Is that what we want for our seniors? Is that what we want for ourselves as we get old, to rot in a for-profit long-term care home? I don't think so.
That's the way of this government, though, and the PC government. They would rather have, instead of public health care, they would rather have a private company come in, be paid by our tax dollars, be paid by you when you go in for services or for healthcare, instead of actually just investing the money needed to hire nurses, to hire doctors, to ensure that our almost 9,900 people here in Flamborough-Glanbrook that do not have a family doctor at all. They would rather take that money instead, invest it in a spa, invest it in this fantasy tunnel, or use it to line the pockets of their rich friends and developers. And that's just not fair to you, it's not fair to me, and it's not fair to any of us on this stage at all, quite frankly, who live here, who reside in Flamborough-Glanbrook, and who need access to these doctors and to our medical care.
And it looks like we have exhausted that particular question. So thank you very much for the question, Josh. We do appreciate it. Our next question will be coming from the incumbent, Donna Skelly. Donna, your question, and please let us know who you will also be directing it to start.
Mike, I'm going to pass. My question has been answered already.
Would you like to remind us what that question was?
It was going to be about the rainwater fees, so I'm fine with that. If the next person wants to jump in, they can go ahead.
Then we will do that if everyone is okay with that.
Sure.
Yep, okay. We will move on to the Ontario New Democratic Party candidate, Lily Noble. Your question, who you'll be directing it to, please.
Thank you, and it's directed to Donna Skelly.
Okay.
You said just a few days ago in the Flamborough Today article that your goal, if elected, is to protect farmland. Why should people trust you when for the past 4 years you've done and said nothing while your government tried everything they could to pave over thousands of acres of greenbelt and 7,400 acres of prime farmland in Flamborough-Glanbrook? Why should they trust you?
I work closely with farmers. I was, as I mentioned just earlier this evening, I met with farmers last night. We talked about the stormwater fee. I have a very good relationship with the farmers throughout the community. Our government has done an awful lot to help the farming community. I would suggest to you that of the parties on the stage here this evening, we get more support in rural Ontario than the three of you probably combined, and that's because they trust us. In terms of paving over farmland, we've talked about the greenbelt. There is a commitment that it won't be opened up, but we have never ever tried to, I don't know what you're suggesting, paving over the farmland, have taken over someone's farm. I'm not sure what you're suggesting.
Well, your government tried to take land out of the greenbelt. It was only because Ontario revolted and said you're not allowed to touch the greenbelt that he apologized at the podium and said, "Oh, I made a mistake. Even though I promised I wouldn't touch it, I was going to touch it, but I'll give it back to you." But still, with Bill 185, anybody can go to the municipality and get an MZO and bulldoze over farmland. So I wonder, how are farmers feeling when your government says that's okay, your farmland can go? And Wilmot, the land assembly there, people are outraged that you've expropriated 700 acres there for some industrial land where nobody knows exactly what that's about, and farmers are outraged. So I don't understand how you can say that, oh, farmers are fine with everything, when it's their land, and they're in the industry has 69,000 people are employed in the farming industry. So if you start to degrade farm here, farm there, the industries that support those farmers find that they can't even get enough business, so they leave, and farmers are left in the lurch. So I don't understand.
We are in the open forum portion. Don, if you can answer that if you like. I do know Josh wants to get in though too.
If you want to go ahead and answer anything first. No? Wonderful.
Please go ahead then, Joshua.
We're on the cusp right now of a possible trade war with the United States and President Trump and some of his tariffs that he wants to impose on us, not just on Hamilton steel at all, but on some of the goods and products that we're changing between borders and that. And our farming communities, our agricultural sector, and rural communities like us here in Flamborough-Glanbrook are going to be key to ensuring that we can actually deliver on providing for families here at home with Ontario-grown corn, Ontario-grown wheat, bread that's made here, right here in Hamilton, in Ontario, and that. So we need to be supporting our farmers in that. We need to be working with them to ensure that they're able to continue to grow and develop their farms in that. We need to be protecting the land that they're working with, that they're sitting on. We need to be providing them resources and supports for them, for their farming equipment and that, so they can be at the top of their technology game when they're actually trying to provide for us here at home when we're under threat from other countries and that. And on that note as well, if I might, we need to go a step further and eliminate those trade barriers right now between our provinces and that.
I'm glad that somebody's finally talking about the tariffs, because it really is the number one threat. And the trade barriers have to be taken down.
Yes.
They've existed too long. There will be issues. It is a federal issue. Again,
we need to work with the federal government, though, and our municipalities.
But the federal government is going to have to do it. But you talked about protecting the agricultural sector. Just before we rose, before Christmas, we raised the cap on and I want to make sure, the risk management program from 150 million to 250 million. It was welcome news to farmers across Ontario. It helps them respond to market challenges. And of course, we will be also by their side going through, if there are tariffs, if these tariffs go through, we have a very detailed plan, unlike the rest of the other parties, on how we will fight back against the tariffs and fight back against President Trump.
And I would argue back against that, if I might, just here for a second, because we have a leader right now in Bonnie Crombie, and we've had a plan that we've had out since the end of last year on how we might be able to combat these tariffs and that. We need to eliminate these trade barriers right now between the provinces, working with the federal government on that. We need to have a strong homegrown response here, where we're actually supporting our small business businesses, where we're supporting our
I
community
want to go
members.
in that as well. I mean, we're going to be generating $10 billion in cash flow support for Ontario employers through a 6-month deferral of provincially administered taxes on Ontario businesses, $3 billion in a payroll tax and premium relief for small businesses, providing $120 million to support bars and restaurants by increasing the LCBO wholesale discount from 10 to 15%, and we'll provide $1 billion into the Skills Development Fund in case these tariffs go through and people start losing their jobs. We want to retrain people and push them towards the skilled trades. And of course, there's another $300 million to expand the Ontario-made manufacturing investment tax credit and $600 million to support the Invest Ontario Fund. We have a plan to fight the tariffs.
Lily?
I just wanted to mention that the NDP will support workers. We've always supported workers, and they will be our top concern
I just want to
should the
mention on
tariffs
that,
come
we
in.
have all of the trades now that are endorsing the Progressive Conservative Party in Ontario. And it's a big shift. We've pulled them from the NDP. The working class person is supporting the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party. Their unions have endorsed Doug Ford and the PCs.
There are 1,300 residential construction jobs that have been lost in the last year. So the NDP has the support of all the unions. So
Not to mention nurses.
Not all of the unions. The trade unions are backing Doug Ford.
Well, you need to get them working because homes need to be built.
Well, we're building
and a lot of them are
highways,
sitting
we're
around.
building homes, we're building highways,
Not
we're
enough
building
homes.
hospitals,
Housing
we're building
starts
schools.
have been going down. So
Housing starts went down with the increased interest rates, of course, but we are also...
You need to be active in getting more homes
We are
built.
doing what we can to get homes built. We are working with municipalities. One of the biggest things, and again, I'll go back to some of the meetings I had with constituency representatives over the past few weeks, door knocking, and one of the a situation that was brought up to me, a gentleman who's been trying to get a house built for 2 years, but the process is so difficult through the city of Hamilton. Municipalities have a very, very complex system of getting building permits, and that has to stop. We have to tackle red tape. It is one of the biggest barriers to getting homes built across the province of Ontario. Not only is it a barrier, but it will delay them, and when you delay construction, you drive up the cost of a home. If you delay a home even so much as 2 years, that cost in the home could go up between $50,000 and $100,000.
But you just said when interest rates were low, buildings were being
We
put
had
up.
the highest
So I guess the
housing
permits are not
starts
slowing
in
people down.
decades, and the highest housing starts across Canada, and the highest housing starts in decades
Your
in
government
Ontario.
needs to be involved.
We,
Okay? You need to be involved.
You
in
don't
making
want
affordable
government
homes.
building homes, though. You want
No, you
the
do need to get involved.
Well, you
You need
don't.
to
You
fund
don't want
things.
bureaucrats out building homes. Trust me, you don't.
No, you do.
We'll
The
give
market will
Josh
not-
the last
market
word
won't
here,
solve
and then we'll
this.
move on to Janet for the last question. Sorry, I cut you off, Lily. What were you saying there?
I just want to say the market will not solve this. We need non-market homes too.
This government's
Joshua?
failed on many things throughout the last 6 years that they've promised that they're going to deliver on or develop in that. And housing is just one of many of them, on top of the education crisis and the healthcare crisis and that. This government's failed building housing so much that the federal government's actually had to step in and provide funding directly to municipalities to help them build housing, because this provincial government's just not getting it done right now in that. We need a solid plan where
Do you
we're
not
able
think
to...
that the federal government should
We
play
need
a
a
role in
solid plan
building
right now
homes?
where we're
Do you
able
not
to
think the federal
develop
government should
housing
play a
in our
role in building
communities.
homes in
Yes,
Ontario?
housing should, but the
Of course
province
it
should not be
So it
holding
has
up
to
the
step in.
the
It's a
province should not be
three-tier-
holding those funds
it's a
hostage at
three-tier
all
plan.
right
You
now
have to
when we have a housing
all
crisis
levels
and
of government
affordability
and the
crisis.
private sector
We need
involved.
homes to be built, and we need people who want to move into our community to have the accessibility of buying those homes and that, lowering the cost of those homes, lowering the cost of rent. And right now, this government is not doing that for you at all.
To all of you, thank you very much for those responses to that question. Our final question from our candidates will be coming from the Green Party. Janet Eggers, your question, who you'll be directing it to, please.
Sure. So I want to change gears a little bit here. I'm going to ask this of you guys. Both of you, whoever wants to jump in is welcome, or if you want me to pick someone, that's fine too. I want to remind everyone watching that as of day one of this election period, only myself and Donna were registered as candidates. As of February 4th, which was 8 days into the election cycle, neither the Liberals nor the NDP had a registered candidate in this riding. So I'm just hoping you guys can explain to voters why neither of you were registered on day one, considering we had intel back in 2024 that there was going to be an early election called, And even in December, the Green Party was telling me to expect it by the end of January. And keeping in mind that we can register up to 6 months in advance, does this suggest that you guys are last resort candidates?
Janet, if you could just please pick one candidate to start.
Lily, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you're right. It took me a while to decide that this was something I wanted to do. I don't run for elections. This is not what I've planned to do in my life. I was easily retired, doing my thing as a retiree. And so when I was asked to do this, it was a perfect fit because of the work I've done with Stop Sprawl. Who better to fight for farmland in Flamborough-Glanbrook than someone who's been working on it for the last 4 years, trying to protect farmland. So it took me a while to decide that it was a perfect fit and that I wanted to do it. That was it.
I'm just going to jump in here after our NDP candidate right now, because this is an election that was thrusted upon us by the PC government and Doug Ford, an unnecessary election right now when he should be at his desk fighting for Ontario with a unified approach that he says that he wants. But instead, we're in an election period right now. This was an election that we were not entirely expecting. It wasn't a scheduled election at all right now. Doug Ford and his PC party still had another 1.5 years of his term left. But nonetheless, me and our NDP candidate, we both showed up to the cause, coming away from my involvement in the nonprofit area and healthcare sector and that with my work. And we're here now to fight for residents and to ensure that this PC government does not get reelected again, because they do not keep their promises for you. They do not keep their promises to themselves at all, and they're not delivering what they're saying they're going to deliver at all for you.
Thank you very much for that. I believe it was just directed to those two. Donna, you're going to stand pat?
I was just going to say, I think Joshua, we had spoken before, and I thought you were going to get into politics anyway. I mean, I knew right away when the first time, and you were much younger, and I thought, don't ever shy away from politics because you have a future in politics. So I just have to say that.
For people that don't, me and Miss Skelly had a conversation about 11, 12 months ago now, somewhere in there, about the healthcare issues and mental health crisis currently happening right now. So a lot of my work previous to that is, and even still right now, is in the mental health sector. It's advocating for resources and that. And Miss Skelly was one of the people that I had chatted with and got a hold of last year to discuss some of these calls of actions, because the provincial government wasn't meeting their responsibilities at all for providing healthcare services, for providing that mental health support at all.
Mike, if I could just say one thing, and it's not to do with even any of the topics raised tonight, but finding people to get into politics can be very tough. It's a blood sport, believe me. The worst part about it is when it gets personal, and I appreciate tonight that our comments were directed at things that we all feel very strongly about, and keeping it professional sometimes doesn't always occur. It doesn't always occur in the legislature as well, but I appreciate that my colleagues we're here to push their messages and their points and fight for what they believe in and not making it personal.
Thank you for that, Donna. Any last word regarding that particular question from Janet? No? Okay. I'm being told we will be now moving on to our closing statements from our Flamborough-Glanbrook candidates. Going in the opposite order from how we opened this debate, 1 minute per candidate, starting with the Progressive Conservative candidate, the incumbent, Donna Skelly.
Thank you, Mike, and I'll keep it really short. This is one of the most important elections that we will face in our lifetime. Our country, our province is under attack by U.S. President Donald Trump, who wants to impose onerous, egregious tariffs on manufacturing and all goods in Canada. And of course, Hamilton is in the crosshairs with steel and that 50% tariff threat on steel and aluminum. In this time of crisis, when others walked away, it was Ontario Premier Doug Ford who stepped in and stepped up and stood up for Canada. On February 27th, I want you to vote, really think hard, vote for a strong economy, a strong future for you and your loved ones. Stand up against these tariffs and stand with us. Doug Ford, Donna Skelly, and the Ontario PCs. Thank you.
Donna Skelly from the Ontario PCs, thank you for your closing statements. We will now move over to Janet Ehrgers from the Green Party. Your final comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike, everyone here at Cable 14, thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. My name is Janet Ehrgers. I'm your Green Party candidate, and I know that status quo politics is broken. I want to see a government that acts in the best interests of the people, not corporations. I want to see elected officials that are accountable to their constituents. I want a world where people have equal access to opportunities and the dignity to live the life that they choose. I want equal representation for everyone, and I want to see people, the planet, and profit in harmony. I'm here to represent your children and your grandchildren. I want to work with you to build a better future. Most important to me is efficiency and accountability, both of which Doug and Donna have failed on. We must level the playing field between people, profit, and planet. My green vision is one of a modern, sustainable, prosperous economy powered by local businesses and vibrant communities. Thank you and good night.
Janet Eggers from the Green Party, thank you so much. We now move on to Lily Noble, representing the New Democratic Party. Take it away.
Thanks. For the past 7 years, the Conservatives have squandered your taxpayer money, including $660 million to speed up getting booze to your corner stores, $2.2 billion to build a spa at Ontario Place, $175 million to call this unnecessary winter election, money that could have been spent on properly funding schools and hospitals. Hospitals in Ontario are facing the worst funding crisis in decades. Hallway medicine is increasing, resulting in poor care and little regard for patient dignity. Privatization of healthcare continues. That's the goal. Schools desperately need to be properly staffed and funded. Our kids can't wait. Flamborough-Glanbrook contains the majority of Hamilton's farmland. We simply cannot trust the Conservatives to protect it. With the looming threat of tariffs, we cannot rely on food coming from our fickle friend to the south. Our food security relies on preserving farmland for farmers. I urge you all to vote. Vote for the needs of everyday working people. Vote for the NDP, who you can trust.
Lily Noble from the Ontario New Democratic Party, thank you very much. And to round out our batting order, cleaning up, Joshua Bell from the Liberal Party. Take it away.
Happy to be cleaning up tonight, as you say. But this is an election right now that we're in because the PC party and Doug Ford do not actually believe in standing up for the people of Ontario at all. Instead of fighting for the people of Ontario, like they still had another year and a half to do, we're in a $180 million election right now in the middle of winter, the first winter election in almost 100 years. This government's failed to deliver on key promises to you for healthcare, for education, and housing too as well. We need a government under the leadership of Bonnie Crombie and our Ontario Liberal Party team that is going to actually deliver for you, deliver healthcare, deliver education, and fix the crisis that this Conservative government and Donna Skelly have created.
Joshua, thank you very much for those final words. And to each of our candidates here tonight from the Liberal, NDP, Green Party, and the PC, we each thank you for your opportunity to be here and for your kind words tonight. Of course, coming out tonight, I know the residents of Flamborough-Glanbrook, they are also very appreciative of you making the time to join tonight's Cable 14 debate. So once again, here it is, Hamilton, the list of your Flamborough-Glanbrook candidates representing the Liberal Party. You just heard from him, Joshua Bell. From the Green Party, Janet Eggers. From the New Blue Party, Kristen Halfpenny, representing the New Democratic Party, Lily Noble. And finally, the incumbent from the Progressive Conservative candidate, it's Donna Skelly. Remember, if you miss any part of Cable 14's local riding debates, you'll be able to find them on demand at cable14.com, free for public viewing and sharing, all courtesy of our good friends at Cogeco and Rogers. It's all going to be online at 12 a.m. on Saturday, February the 22nd. Hamilton, thanks again. And thanks to our media panel from the Hamilton Spectator, CBC, and CHCH. Most importantly, thank you. Thank you for watching. Please do your part. Get out and vote in the provincial election on or before February 27th. All the information that you need for voting, it's all available online at elections.on.ca. That's it for all of us here at the Cable 14 studios. Thank you, Hamilton, and good night.
Closed captioning for the Hamilton Provincial Candidates Debate has been sponsored by the Cornerstone Association of Realtors. Homes, not hurdles. Local realtors advocating for attainable homes for everyone.
A senior help wanted sign.